Sunday night news. How does one man who is the richest man in the world have time to sit around on Twitter, something he bought for like 40 something billion dollars, and just constantly tweet out things? Some of them are just off the wall wild. Some of them actually are really good topics to talk about. That's what I'm going to do today. Elon Musk today tweeted out something. He was responding to a post about illegal immigration, and if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. Now, I haven't been around too long, but it seems like every single election we go through is the most important election. Now, I do think this is a very important election. This is obviously a breaking point in the past for America. Now, when you go back to Obama and McCain or Obama and Romney, were these critical? Yes, absolutely. There's no denying it. But for Donald Trump, and specifically for him, if he loses, he is going to go to jail. Millions of people are going to be absolutely pissed about that. Me being one of them, I will be very upset too. Starting to lock up political adversaries, saying that he is charged with 31 felonies, which are all BS. You know, you look at the history books. How many other political prisoners were charged with something? Musk warns if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. Elon Musk has urged the influx of illegal immigration into the United States, something that the Democrats are expediting as fast as humanly possible, will effectively establish a one-party state and democracy is over. I think actually old Elon's pretty well versed on this, living in California, where essentially it is a one-party state. They have a very silly election process, and it's essentially one Democrat running against the other Democrat in a primary situation, where on the ballots it's essentially all Democrats. There's other than a few House seats in the northeastern side of the state, it is a one-party state. Now, what's different, and it goes on to say this in the article, what is different for that is, yes, California is a one-party state, and it's continuously spiraling downwards into oblivion. But why can they keep getting away with it? Well, because people can leave California, right? And so that's actually kept them in some kind of restraint because they can't go full on to the left. They can't go full communism, I guess, or full liberal with all their policies, all their economic giveaways, because they do have to retain some amount of people because people can leave. Now, if the entire country is wrapped up into this, you really have nowhere to go. Responding to an X thread, which Senator Mike Lee of Utah pointed out that DOJ is suing Alabama for trying to remove non-citizens from the voting list, and block the SAVE Act. Musk noted that everywhere in America will be like a nightmare that is downtown San Francisco. God, I hope not. Let me explain. He goes on to explain, even if 1 in 20 illegals become citizens per year, something that Democrats are expediting as fast as possible, that would be about 2 million illegal new voters in 4 years. The voting margin in swing states are often less by 20,000. That's true. I believe it was Georgia and Wisconsin, and then Pennsylvania was only 88,000 votes. So if this is a reality, and we're going to get into the different articles that I've found kind of walking down this road of these accusations, if this is possible or if this is true, the replacement theory is very much in full play. Now, we're not supposed to be talking about that, even though that was a Democratic play to increase voters that are people that they thought were going to vote for them. We're going to also show how that might not be the case in the coming years if the Republican Party continues its ground game. Moreover, the Biden-Harris administration has been flying asylum seekers who are fast-tracked to citizenship directly into swing states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Arizona. This is a surefire way to win every election. So that is something that is very interesting. There's states that largely vote against or do not like. If you want to say more than 51% of it do not support illegal immigration. However, in the middle of the night, the government hires planes to fly these people from the border to different cities and states across the United States. Our good friend in New York City got a bunch of them there, and he spoke up against it, and now he's being indicted for many kind of what I have read, not serious issues, but ultimately he spoke out against illegal immigration, and this really is the 10-year plan for the Democratic Party. Don't win on the issues, just lock people in, get them in there, get them to vote. America then becomes a one-party state. So let me pull this up. Here we got very few Americans realize that if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. Far from being a threat to democracy, this is the only way to save it. The voting margin in swing states are often less than 20,000. America becomes a one-party system. The only thing holding California back from extreme socialism and suffocating government policies is that people can leave California and still remain in America. Once the whole country is controlled by one party, there will be no escape. That would be very scary. Okay, now, first thing someone will say to you is, well, illegals don't vote. Well, they're not supposed to, right? As far as I can tell, they don't. Unless, of course, they assume a legal ID, illegally assume an ID of someone else, get a driver's license and register to vote. Okay, so they would be breaking the law, right? That would be fraud. So they're not openly voting. In at least Texas, I will speak to that. I'm not 100% sure about other states. There are municipalities where even if you're illegal, you can vote on city issues, subjects, politicians. Now, I don't like that idea because that is kind of the gateway of, hey, they're voting on city policies. Well, why not county and state? Well, why not a federal election? One argument that has come up is that, okay, well, they're not voting directly, but they are indirectly voting, and that comes through the census. The census is into the Constitution. We do a census every 10 years, and that is to get a raw head count of everyone in the United States. Now, when this came around, it is a raw number, right? Recently, much recently, people have been saying, okay, well, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about U.S. citizens? Are we talking about taxpayers? Why would illegals be in the census when ultimately the census is going to weigh out for the Electoral College? It's going to divvy out these points for the Electoral College and see who can get to 270 and who can't. It's also going to do with redistricting and how big a district is going to be. They're all roughly the same population. How you cut it up, very important. Some people call that gerrymandering. I just call it being strategic. Now, that's important. Those things do matter. And if you have, this is, 1 in 20 illegals, so the number jumps around all the time. Some people say 11. I think that's wildly low. Some people say 25 million illegals, and a quarter of them or half of them fill out a census. That's a lot of weight on a population of 350 million or whatever it is right now. That is a significant amount. Okay, you can't overlook that. And to say that it has no effect, I think that's dishonest. Now, if you want to do, which we'll go through, you want to go through the full policies, and you want to weigh it out, and you want to see what comes. Does this state gain one? Does this state lose one? Is this an extra seat? Is this not an extra seat? Well, we'll see what the Democratic Party has to say, and you'll see very quickly that they're definitely in favor of this. Now, if we have people like AOC saying, "Yeah, you should fill it out if you're illegal," I'm gonna assume that she has information that is going to help her party. Let's hear what she has to say.
I think that will have huge implications, not just on this election, but the next decade, is the census. Can you speak about how you're approaching that and how, just try to explain to people exactly how important it is.
So we are all going to get census forms or a prompt. We're all going to get mailed a prompt to fill out the census in the next 2 weeks or so. And so I think what's really important is that we all fill this out. It happens once every 10 years. Every single person, no matter your documentation status, no matter your housing status, income, et cetera, is to be counted. And it determines how much our schools are going to get funded, how much infrastructure gets invested, and of course, how many members of Congress each community gets. And if you get undercounted, you know, in some parts of New York City, some communities, the self-reporting is about half of what we think it should be. And that has real impacts on apportionment of how, you know, how many teachers that your local schools get. So it's really important. It's completely confidential, and it's even confidential within the federal government. Your census data is not shared with any other federal agency at all. So don't worry if you're having a creative living situation and it's not going to be told to your landlord or anything crazy like that. Don't worry. Totally safe.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, and we will. We'll just leave her face up here for right now. Okay, so first off, she said the quiet part out loud. Doesn't matter about your documentation status. Right there. Now, if anyone says, oh, well, you know, illegals really don't get involved. They really don't even fill that out. Well, she just said in parts of New York, it's only half. So it's at 50%. It's at 50%, roughly is what she's saying. Illegals are filling that out. Now, she could say 50% of just everybody, but what I'm saying is that it sounds like she's saying that illegals are filling these out at a high number, but she wants them to be higher. Now, she's also saying things that, like, if you fill that out, you know, that will pick how many teachers you get. Okay, well, first off, the local independent school districts are not looking at these census data to find out how many teachers they need. They're looking at how many people are enrolled into their school. That's what they're doing to figure out how many teachers they get. The ISDs are not pulling up census data. And then second, at the very end there, she said, and if you know, don't worry, your data's not shared with anyone else. Well, if it's not shared with anyone else, then how would the schools be using it to find out how many teachers they need? So there was a lot of crisscrossing there about the census. The main takeaway for anyone that is on this topic of illegal immigration and figuring out if you're worried about the safety and security of our elections, are they being played fairly? Are there bad actors manipulating the situation? Are there bad actors manipulating people to walk in to manipulate the situation unknowingly, unbeknownst to them? They have no idea. They're not evil actors. They're just like, oh, well, I mean, someone told me I can go vote, or so, you know, I should do this, or I should fill out this census, or I should, you know, that right there. And this smile kind of really encompasses all, like, well, she had to do it. She had to close her eyes there for a second and be like, it's going to be okay. All right. Is illegal immigration really a Democratic plot to sway congressional appointments? Okay, so if you didn't know, there's 435 people in the House of Congress. That number doesn't change. The more people that we get, we don't get more seats. How they are divided up and how many states gets how many seats is wildly important. So the census that was just done a couple years ago, New York, I believe, lost a seat. Florida gained 2. Let's see, there was, I think, Texas gained 1, California lost 1. So these things do matter as they float around, and how many people in a state is filling out the census. And then also, I do believe that there is, it doesn't 100% go off the census. There's also other data that gets fed into there, but nonetheless, it does matter. Now, in here, thirdway.org, you can go in here. Ultimately, in this they're saying that it either doesn't affect it. Okay. I don't really buy that you can have up to 25 million people illegally living in your country, filling out the census and or voting locally where it is legal to vote locally as an illegal immigrant, or possibly being a bad actor and voting illegally. They're saying that has no effect, or it's a complete wash. And I'll just get down to the easy charts here. States where illegal immigration adds or subtracts a congressional seat. You see Alabama projected congressional seats in 2020 without undocumented migrants. So it looks like they would have got 7, if I'm reading this correctly, but they ended up getting 6. Now, with illegal immigration involved, California picks up 1. Minnesota lost 1. New York picked up 1. Ohio lost 1. Texas picked up 1. Now, one thing that it didn't dive into, which I'm really interested to find out, is in California, it's a sanctuary state. So is New York. If it's a sanctuary state, would they be more likely to fill out the census because they don't have a fear of retaliation compared to Ohio or Texas or Minnesota, I guess? I'm wondering if that also has an effect that, for instance, people in California, illegals in California are filling this out more easily. More people are doing it, which is leading to this as well. States where illegal immigration adds or subtracts congressional seat. That's the same chart, so I don't know why that's there. The Electoral College. This is getting down to, hey, it is what, regardless of the number that people are here, it is getting proportionally spread out through the different states. And in here, it actually drops a little bomb of it actually could be leaning in favor of Republican states, Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Florida, where illegal immigrants are more likely to go because of economic opportunity. I think a lot of illegal immigrants go to California because it's easier to get in there. Again, it is a sanctuary state. They can get a lot of benefits, but I do believe when those benefits run out, they go ahead and take a hike down somewhere else to get more opportunity. So let's jump into this replacement theory, because just for a second, this is actually really interesting, because when this replacement theory first came around, this was really brought on by the left. And it came on the heels of an Obama win and the coalition that he put together. And with that coalition of suburban white educated women and a certain proportion of blacks and Hispanics, that they could never lose an election, and forever they would be, enshrined into the halls of power, and that would be it. And finally, the Western world would slowly diminish, as we would put it, but they would say progress into something different. Now, if you're looking on here, if you're looking for the great replacement theory, you're going to find that after about 2017, all of a sudden, the Democratic Party actually backed away from that idea because they realized that it was toxic to actually be promoting that. And then they did what they always do. They projected onto the right what they were actually doing. And they said, that's evil. That's racist. You're not allowed to say that. We're not doing that. That's you that are doing that. Right? And that kind of all wraps up with this weekend, Kamala Harris's trip down to the border. As the border czar, she finally went to the border. Yes, we know she went to El Paso one time a couple years ago. Didn't actually visit the border wall. She went to some empty facility and then left. But she also hasn't been to Europe. So it was for the American people to see that she's down there on the border wall walking with 2 border agents and saying, we're going to secure this wall. We're going to do this. We're going to build. We're going to do. It's like, okay, well, why was it on the first month of the administration that you were in, you guys ended stay in Mexico, stopped catch and release, and really did away with a lot of the extra handout and payouts that were incentivizing people to come. First month, right? Just flipped it all on its head, and sure as shit, went through the roof. Now let's look at real quick why this, although is the great replacement theory, is a thing that the Democratic Party is trying to do. And remember, elections are won in the margins. Let's break down what NBC has to say about this.
Was their candidate. But I think the bigger story here is historically, 54-40 now is a 14-point advantage for the Democrats. Take a look back at the last 3 presidential elections, and these were the results in the exit polls among Hispanic voters. That 14, look at that cut there, almost 20 points less than just 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, we were saying Donald Trump had made inroads with Hispanic voters. This suggests that that has continued apace. So what is driving this shift? Well, we see a few big gaps here. A gender gap. Familiar with this one, certainly. Men tied when it comes to this race. Women, a 26-point advantage. Again, among Hispanic voters here, there's a gender gap, as we see with polls of overall voters. Also, age, a big factor here. Look at this. Voters over 50, Hispanic voters over 50, almost a 60-point advantage for Harris, and she's barely leading with Hispanic voters under 50. In fact, among men under 50, Donald Trump actually leads in our poll by 9 points, 9-point advantage there. Men under 50 for Trump. We also see an education divide. Again, we talk about this a lot when we're talking about the overall pool of voters, too. Men without 4-year degrees, that's now a double-digit Trump constituency in our poll. Men with degrees siding with Harris here, bigger margins among women, but we are seeing a bit of that education gap, and we are seeing a religion gap here. Among Catholic Hispanics, 20 points for Harris. Protestant Hispanics, 26 points for Donald Trump. Talking a little bit about the issues, what's the most important issue? We asked in this poll, abortion clocking in there, and Kamala Harris, big advantage. We see that being competent and effective. Kamala Harris leading there as well. But then the biggies. These are the ones that Hispanic voters are saying are the most important to them. Economy, small advantage, Trump. Inflation, 9-point advantage. And how about that? On the border and on immigration, Donald Trump with a double-digit advantage, 13 points in our poll. When asked who would be better on this issue, Hispanic voters are saying it's Donald Trump. And that is part of a broader shift here on basic attitudes among Hispanic voters toward immigration. Look, when Donald Trump first ran in 2016, 69% of Hispanics said immigration helps the country more than it hurts. That's come down to 62, and the number who say it hurts more than it helps, all the way up to 35%. There's something bigger and broader going on here, and I think you could see it finally with this. We ask a basic question of Hispanic voters: which party do you more identify with? 37% now say Republicans, 49% say Democrats, but again, look at how this has shifted in just the last dozen years. In 2012, this was a 41-point advantage for the Democrats. It has come all the way down to 12 points, Kristen, a 29-point drop in terms of that gap there on.
Isn't that wild? This is in conjunction with Telemundo. That is wild to me that they're pulling Hispanics and won that jump. Right. So just in general, if you look at if you continue to have an open border policy and you start allowing people that came here illegally, giving them citizenship and voting, that's how it would break. I think that's absolutely wild that they say that by 13 points, Donald Trump is up over Kamala Harris on border and immigration. Now think about that. Now, obviously, not every person that they poll Hispanic is illegal, but at the same time, you got to think some of them are, right? And you got to think a 13-point advantage, and he's like, I'm going to build that wall. And he did build some wall. Okay, he didn't build all the wall. He did have every single roadblock in his way. But he did build some of the wall. inflation, obviously, the economy only up by 4. This is the abortion thing just drives me absolutely nuts. Drives me nuts. How many times are you going to need an abortion in your life? And that's the most important thing to you. Now, I did hear the argument, and it's pretty legitimate. Like, if you can't have an abortion, it does follow you around for the rest of your life, right? You got a kid now for the rest of your life. So I do understand that. But 32 point, come on, girls, come on. We got get your man snipped. I know. Not wearing a condom, wearing a condom's not fun, but we also got birth control. You can get that. Obviously, there's side effects that are just not great in there. Catholics or Protestants, he's got to come up with a plan here. He got to come up with a plan here with the Catholics. You make inroads there, and it's really not that hard. I can't imagine. I mean, think about the conservative values and think about older, especially he was way behind on older Hispanics. Just conservative values are Catholic values. They're about family, the abortion issue. They're about a safe community. God, I mean, the Democratic Party really doesn't encompass religion in general. They're actually very anti-religious. They're happy to say that not only are they atheists, but you're a freaking idiot for even thinking there could be a higher power other than us. And so, okay. I mean, the inroads there with the Catholic community could break huge if you could actually put together some kind of proper campaign for that. The fact that he doesn't do good with college women, that doesn't surprise me, or women with no degree. Yeah, he's not good at making them feel comfortable. It really depends on where they get their information, though, right? If they're only getting it from NBC, CNN, in the waiting rooms and things like that. Yeah, he looks like an ass, but the truth is he's really not. He's overwhelmingly popular with people that kind of get past that baseline intro of him. Yeah, over 50 years old. That's wild. So I'm actually surprised under 50 it's so close. I'm not surprised about the women again, but over 50, that actually really does surprise me. That right there is That's marketing. People over 60 or over 50 years old, dude, they are sitting in front of the TV watching soap operas. You can buy those ads. Right? Maybe they didn't pull people in the swing states or something, because that's really the only places you're going to start seeing ads right now, or ads in general, because it's all about the swing states. But that's an easy marketing. Marketing of boomers is easy. All right. If Trump wins, what are we? We're going to have the night of the long knives over here. What are we doing? How Trump's plan for mass deportation fits into U.S. history. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So this is from Axios. We got the worst times in American history and the deportations. We'll touch on them quickly. The Palmer raids, a surge of Italian and Russian Jewish immigrants into mini industrial cities at the turn of the century, sparked a wave of anti-immigration bigotry and fueled the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. How did the Ku Klux Klan get their outfits so white? I can't keep my shirts white. How did they do it back in the day? A bomb outside Attorney General's A. Michael Palmer's house in Washington, D.C., along with the pandemic flu, Russian Bolshevik Revolution, and overhyped Red Scare gave the ambitious lawyer cover to go after those immigrants. Palmer dispatched young Justice Department lawyer, J. Edgar Hoover, to start rounding up immigration suspects of holding radical political views, leading to the arrest of immigrants during this time. In major cities, thousands were arrested without warrants, with no regard to the constitutional protections for lawful searches. Deportations of them, they got deported. Let's see, Palmer raids. I thought they were way worse than that. Sorry. So it goes on and on. Let's read about Operation Wetback. President Eisenhower operation used military-style tactics to round up 1.3 million Mexican Americans across the country in the 1950s for what was then the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. Wetback is a racial slur for Mexicans. Sorry about that. My neighbor is smoking. Yeah, and I can smell it, and it's like it kind of dries out my throat too. The deportation came after some Mexican civil rights leaders, including lawyer Gus Garcia, urged the federal government to deport undocumented Mexican immigrants who were being exploited to keep wages down for poor Mexican Americans. That's happening right now. Illegal immigrants, illegal immigration, or mass legal immigration suppresses wages. It suppresses wages over and over again. If there's more people to fill a job slot, companies do not need to offer more for those jobs. Now, if the wages are too expensive for that position, the companies will they will innovate to find a different way to do that process, whatever it is, right? We've seen this with Tyson Chicken time and time again, where they hire illegal immigrants, and their first excuse when they get busted is, well, we couldn't find any other workers. It's because you're not offering enough for those workers to incentivize them to show up to work. That's the problem. You don't give it enough time. You have to give it time for the market, for the company to get beat up on no one submitting their job applications or a heavy turnover for them to be like, okay, we got to raise the wage here. More than 1 million were deported, separating families and creating more than 1 million were deported. Traditional Mexican families, about more than 1 million were deported. Okay, now present day, despite cheers at Trump rallies for send them back, any modern day mass deportation efforts would likely be met with resistance from Latino civil rights groups and elected officials. David J. Burr, Associate Director of Immigration Studies at the Cato Institute, tells Axios. Today, there are elected Latinos in federal, state, and local offices and well-organized civil rights and advocacy groups that weren't in place decades ago. Network of churches and volunteers were likely to offer shelter to migrants. That's seen in the 1980s during the Reagan air raids in Central America immigration communities. Armies of journalists, activists, and social media influencers will document the raids. Okay, so if you're here illegally and the government does a raid on you, this is saying that, well, it's not going to be successful because judges are going to not let it go through, or they're going to muddy up the water, or the swamp is going to get in the way. And then local groups are going to, do the Anne Frank, hide them in the attic or something. Okay, that's fine. Axios, you missed somebody. I noticed something in here that you didn't talk about. And it's wildly convenient for you to not talk about this person, because thousands of Italian and Russian Jewish immigrants, Operation Wetback, 1 million. Someone you didn't talk about was Barack Obama, who was the biggest deportation president of all time. He also got the nickname Deporter in Chief. So let's talk about Axios. You missed it, man. Reporting today must be super easy when you don't even have to, even line things up for anybody. I mean, this is the Deporter in Chief. Now, under Trump, for his first 4 years, secured 2 million deportations. Okay? Now, that would be a combination of three different, they have removals, returns, and Title 42 expulsions. These happened from March 2020 to 23 under public health policy. Some people arrived at the border, were not let into the United States, and were expelled without legal penalties. Now, during Barack Obama's first term fiscal year 2009 to 2012, there were 3.2 million deportations, removals, and returns. Fiscal year 2009 included about 4 months of the second George W. Bush administration. During Obama's second term, covering fiscal years 2013, 2016, there were 2.1 million deportations. So this guy, Barack Obama, someone that you didn't really point out, was deporting millions more people than what happened in Operation Wetback. Now, why did you not write about that? That's so bad that you didn't write about that. It's so obvious. Hey, thank you for doing the work, Maria. This is a short and sweet article from the Houston Chronicle. Axios. Look at these pictures. They got them in cages. Here's all the Italian people, sad people loading up their trucks. Axios, come on. You gotta talk about Obama, the deporter in chief. So Trump's plan to deport, let's say, it says 11 million again. That number is so off and so old. Just think they have like 40,000 encounters at the border every week. That number just is so drastically small, and they're not leaving either. Too. It's not like they're like they come here and they do a U-turn and they go back, right? They're staying. There's too many benefits to staying here, right? Of course, it's the greatest country in the world. Why not, right? And of course they're going to come to that, especially when you're going to give them handouts and you're going to give them this and you're going to give them that, and the story goes on and on depending on where you are. He wants to deport 11 million, 15 million people. Now, how would that happen? I don't know how that happens. And I actually don't see that happening because I don't think the American people can actually stomach that and what that would end up looking like. However, obviously, 3 million is doable. Barack Obama did it. Now, there is something to be said that he is a Democrat in the Washington, D.C., the deep state, the swamp, they're all Democrats. So that made it much easier. And, of course, every move that Donald Trump will do, if he doesn't have a mass majority in the House and the Senate, it will be bogged down greatly. So some states will have to be given the reins to do that themselves. Hopefully Texas steps up and does something like that. This is going to be the top issue. This is the top issue of the election here. Yes, we have the economy, but the economy, a lot of it is ingrained with the immigration. You have an extra 15 million people. Let's split the difference. 15 million people here. That's why there's a housing crisis. That's why there's nowhere to live. That's why there's the rent is so high. That is why the houses are so expensive. One of the reasons the houses are so expensive. Definitely why there's nowhere to freaking rent and the rent's so damn high. That for sure. You deport 10 million people, the rent's going down. The rent is going down, okay? There's just going to be so much more available, right? Houses aren't going to be cut up into 10 different bedrooms and rent the bunks. So it is this immigration thing is definitely with the economy. Mass immigration like this, like I said before, clearly slows the growth of your wages, right? And there's just more demand on the entire system, right? So people, businesses, factories can only put out so much per day. And if there's so many people consuming that in the country, that's going to make the prices go up. Now, are they price gouging? I don't think so. But Kamala Harris does, and apparently that's like her key pivotal thing that she's going to do if she gets into office, even though she could just do that right now, but she's not going to. Anyways, that's the Sunday night show. Guys, I'm going to be coming back next week with much, much, much more. Plus, we're getting a little studio together. We're going to start having some local politicians, and I'm going to start bringing in some people with who are much better spoken than me. Thoughts are much, much deeper. And we're going to be doing interviews and just kind of giving them the free reins and just having a little fun. So I hope you stick around, subscribe, like, and thanks for listening. You all have a great day.